Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We will be starting in the next couple of minutes. We are just giving everyone a chance to log in and settle in. Good afternoon and welcome to the YES webinars. Today we are speaking about the ins and outs of youth employability, looking towards our specialist panel, which we welcome. Welcome to Farai, Danai, Letiwe. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. If you could kindly introduce yourselves and let us know what you will be talking about in your specific sessions before we move ahead.
Hi everyone, I hope you're well and a very good afternoon. My name is Farai Mubaywa. I'm YES's Chief Partnerships Officer, and what I will be talking about as we have this exciting webinar at the end of this Women's Month, it's just how young people can access YES opportunities, how you enhance your employability as a young person, and also how you overcome the barriers you face in finding employment. And of course, I'll be bouncing a lot off my colleagues on the call because there are so many synergies in the work that we do. I'll hand over to
Thank you very
Danai.
much, Farai.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danai Nyagani, and I'm a program manager for training and development at Youth Hub Africa. I'm really excited to have this interesting conversation with all the young people that are joining on the call today. So my contribution to this webinar is just to talk around how networking is important for young people and how to go about doing that, and especially just around how we can capitalize volunteering as a means to be able to start our work experience within the labor market. So really excited to engage on those two topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dana. We look forward to your contribution. Letiwe.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Letiwe Snotumokosi here from Youth Capital, an advocacy campaign that advocates for an evidence-based and youth-centered response to youth unemployment. And my contribution to today's conversation will be looking at, the challenges that young people face on their journey to employment, but also what solutions are needed to counter those challenges, help young people maximize on the experience, see the experience as stepping stones to future opportunities, and also how young people can support each other just as another way of countering the challenges that they face on the journey. So how young people can support each other on their journey to entering the labor market. I look forward also just to bounce off the points that will be made by my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Letiwe. And thank you so much to everybody that has joined this very important conversation. For those of you who want a more detailed explanation around what exactly it is that we are interrogating today, the long and the short of it is that we are looking at ways to make you, the people that we serve, the youth, not only more employable, but we also want to give you hints and tips and tools on how to grow yourself, wherever that it is that you may be in your journey, whether you are yet to be employed, whether you are looking for employment, or whether you find yourself in an employment space, but are looking for ways to further your career. The important part of this conversation is that the aim of it is to teach young people such as yourselves things that you don't necessarily learn in the formal setting or classroom, as we call it, whatever that classroom may or may not look like. So we are looking at speaking to networking opportunities. We are looking to how to put yourself out there, how to leverage some of the pathways that may be available to you, some of the keys to success, as well as learning from personal experiences from some of our panel members. How it will go is that we will give each of our panel members a chance to discuss their individual topics. You are welcome to post your questions on the Q&A area of this, and we will answer them as best as possible. Without any further ado, I will give Farai Mubaiwa, who is the Chief Partnerships Officer at YES, an opportunity to have her piece.
Thank you, sis. So like we said, a good afternoon to everyone. We are ending off Women's Month, and what a powerful way for us to actually do so. You would notice that just last week, the recent quarterly labor force survey was released, which showed a slight decrease in the levels of unemployment. If we're looking at the official unemployment rate in South Africa, we now have an unemployment rate of 33.9%. But the concern is that in the levels of those who are unemployed, we still see that young Black women are most affected. And as such, we're still also seeing high levels of youth unemployment overall. So there's a number of things that we have to unpack in this webinar this afternoon, so that when you do leave, you find yourself better equipped to actually navigate this interesting space we find ourselves in as a country. First, I want to tell you a little bit about the YES program, and then I'll speak from the perspective of the employer in terms of what are key aspects employers are looking for, and how can you leverage existing pathways to enhance your employability. So YES is a business-driven not-for-profit who works alongside the private sector to create massive job opportunities for unemployed youth. In the past 3.5 years, we've created over 82,000 jobs for unemployed youth with the involvement of over 2,200 corporates. What's incredible for us is that we create these jobs for young people because we aim to break the experience trap. And the experience trap is where you can't get a job without work experience, and you can't get work experience without a job. And then a lot of young people find themselves in this continued cycle. So YES allows young people to break this trap by giving them an opportunity to gain quality work experience. At the end of the program, you emerge with 12 months worth of work experience, a CV, a reference letter, and a completion certificate. And the reference letter is particularly important because research shows us that having a reference letter triples your likelihood of a callback when you are going for job interviews. So we need reference letters because they validate us and the work that we do. What's been really interesting within the journey is just looking at how different the work experiences of the youth are. We've got a number of youth who are drone pilots. We've got some youth who are doing coding. We've got some youth who are hosted by our partner, Youth Health Africa, who work within the healthcare space as data capturers and lay counselors. And it's been important for us to have as diverse skills as possible, because we know that opportunities for young people must be diverse because we are all different. The one thing that has been so common from employers, regardless of the industry with which they sign up to with YES, is that soft skills are very key. And very often soft skills lack amongst us as young people. YES did a survey in 2020 with a number of employers, and we found that employers hire for technical skills, so hire because of the degree or the diploma, but fire for the lack of soft skills. And as such, it's important for us as young people to actually look at what soft skills do we have and how do we grow and improve upon these soft skills. And I know that when my colleagues speak, they'll speak more about volunteering and how that also allows you to gain the critical soft skills. I want to touch on two other things.
Before you go on, Farai, thank you for that. I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Some of our listeners or some of our participants would like a little bit more information around soft skills. So what would we define as soft skills, and how do they apply within the workplace?
Thanks, Makena. And I think that's such an important question. So soft skills, and I actually like to refer to them as your essential skills. They are your intangible skills that you can't necessarily hold and touch, but are so key for how you navigate in any space. It refers to skills such as how you communicate with others. It's skills such as how you deal with conflict, how you deal with a crisis, how you can adapt to different situations. And those are key skills, including how you work within a team. And once you, as a young person, have mastered those skills, how to work within a team, how you deal with conflict, how you deal with differing personalities, how you communicate. And I want to highlight here that when we speak about communication for soft skills, it's not about an accent or a twang. It's about how you get your perspective out there and whether you can be understood for what it is that you have said. So those are key skills that I think as young people, we often take for granted. We often want to focus on the diploma or the degree, not knowing that that's one part of it. And I must just share as well that through my own experience, I did start off wanting to hire youth that had qualifications. The mindset that qualifications are so key in terms of making a great employee. The experience has taught me that in actual fact, the qualifications are one thing, but I would much rather have someone who just has a matric or not even a matric and give them an opportunity if they've got the right attitude, if they've got great soft skills and are consistently willing to learn. And that's why we find that trend that employers hire for technical skills, but fire for a lack of soft skills.
Thank you so much for expanding on that, Farai. Danai, I'd just like to find out from your experience, what are some of the things or trends that you've noticed, especially coming from a view of somebody who's often put in a position to hire and manage young people and young job seekers?
Thank you so much for that question. I think similar to what Farai had mentioned, just in terms of, on paper, we are able to sort of see the potential of this young person, right? So we can see that, they have some experience that is actually relevant for the kind of roles that we're looking for, or they don't have experience and, we think that they are actually a good fit for the programs that we're running. And when we sit with them in the different interviews that we have, it's often very interesting because sometimes what might happen is that the person that you see on the CV is very different from the person that you're interacting with, right? And so you might find the person who you're interacting with actually has really great communication skills. They are able to actually share their story. And I think for a lot of us, that's the thing that buys us in, right? We like to choose people that I think we resonate with, and we believe that, you know, this role or this opportunity that we're providing them will actually help them aspire and reach their dreams. I think sometimes what also happens is that we interact with young people who on paper have a really incredible story, right? But when you ask them to share that story, it doesn't often come across, right? And so I think that one of the things that is really important for young people is that, you know, being able to share your story and to be able to communicate it in such a way that is compatible to the working environment. A lot of young people may have been coming out of school, and, you know, in school you learn to communicate with each other in a very particular way, right? It's very relaxed, you use a lot of slang, but I think when you enter a professional world, there's a certain way in which you need to carry yourself. And I think that one of the ways in which you're able to gain sort of that insight in terms of how to present yourself and how to actually adapt within the workspace is actually to volunteer, right? Because I think that's an opportunity for you to actually get a sense of what the working world looks like, and for you to also be able to develop some of those soft skills that you've identified that you don't necessarily have yet. And that actually does prepare you quite well in being able to actually sit with a potential employer and say, look, this is what I've been doing in my time. I've used my time to be able to enhance the skill set. I've also able to contribute to my community. And therefore, you know, you are able to present yourself in the best way possible and actually increase your chances of being employed afterwards.
Absolutely. And Lethiwe, just to get a viewpoint from you as the network mobilizer at Youth Capital, and we know you have a lot of experience in this space, what would you think some of the top soft skills are for young people to have in their arsenal?
I mean, already the one about communication has been pointed out. And I think it's really key as a young person to be able to not only verbally communicate, but succinctly communicate on paper. In addition to having the ability to communicate effectively, I think being consistent, so showing up as a young person and being consistent is an invaluable skill, soft skill to have, because then it proves that you are reliable. And we've heard, you know, from employers, you know, speak about young people not always showing up. And so if you've honed the ability to be consistent, you really are able to stand out to an employer. Another key soft skill that's already been mentioned by my colleagues is the one around working in a team. So it means that you are adaptable, you are able to, you know, put in your effort in order to achieve a common goal with the team members. So I think, yeah, those are the two that I would emphasize in addition to being able to communicate, just being consistent. So having the ability to just stick to what you need to do consistently, but also working well in a team are also two important soft skills that young people need to have.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Lethiwe. Just a reminder to everybody in this conversation, if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask, you're welcome to post them in the Q&A section. And Farai, following on to what Lethiwe has just said about being a team player and teamwork, how do you think that would resonate or would speak to young people that are trying to go further in the workplace, and particularly speaking to some of the data that we have received as YES does their continuous research?
Thanks so much, Mokeba. And I think, let me share with you a story so that we can make this a bit more practical in terms of how important it is for teamwork. And I'll share my own story, which is, to be very honest with you, growing up, I struggled a lot with teamwork. And I struggled a lot because in my mind, I thought, you know what, I have to do this work, all of it, or else it won't be done so to the standard which I wanted. And having that mentality, once I got into the workplace, it was just no longer sustainable, because the reality is that there is so much work. There's also so many competing tasks. and you are only just one person in your role. And the point of working within a team is that you leverage strengths from each other. There are things that I am great at, but there are things that I am not great at. And my colleagues, Letty and Danai and yourself, would be much better at those improvement areas I have. So when you work within a team, it's about leveraging the strengths that everyone has to get the job done. What's important, though, is that you have to be able to trust your teammates. And you also have to be able to, as your teammates, show up. So if there is an expectation that you work within a team, looking very clearly at what it is you bring to the table. If you have a task, doing that task, showing up and doing your best. And it's so interesting, but then once again, a lot of employers look at how you are within a team. Through the YES program, like I had mentioned, we've got youth across various roles. And imagine how difficult it is for youth within these roles to actually not share the responsibility. If you are a young person in coding or healthcare or within the manufacturing space, you have to work within a team. If we just look at one of the partners we have, which is Mobicel, when you are creating a phone, there are different components to the creation of that phone. And in fact, there's an assembly line. One person cannot make one Mobicel phone. It will take them, I don't want to say years, but months to be able to make one phone. But when you are in the assembly line, Farai will add on the batteries, Danai will look at the screen, Letty will check the functionality, Mokebe would add the charger, etc., etc. So that's how key teamwork is across the different industries. And I want to just encourage young people on this call to say, yes, you may be waiting for employment opportunities, but don't wait and sit idly. Look for what is happening within your community and how you can be involved. And Danai, through the work that they do at Youth South Africa, we speak a lot more about the volunteering aspect. But when you volunteer, you gain critical skills and tools, which you must include on your CV so that when you are applying for that job opportunity, you already have reference that is speaking to your capabilities.
Thank you. And I think this segues exactly into the point that Keith on the line has asked. Keith wants to know, how would you implement the skills and knowledge that you obtain at varsity in the workplace? And Letty, I'm giving this over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Keith, for that question. I think when I read it, what came to mind is firstly the importance to articulate what are the skills that you gained while you were at university. Oftentimes we do things so sort of in a very organic way without noting, actually, this is the skill that I'm exercising while doing this task. So I guess the first step would be to write down what are the skills that I gained while I was at university. So when I was a member of a particular club, say the tutoring club at university, what skills did I gain through that experience? Okay, I learned how to be a leader. I learned how to organize tutoring sessions, etc. And once you have articulated those skills for yourself, you're able to then align them to the skills needed in the workplace. So if you're applying for a role that requires you to organize, then you can simply say, well, I learned how to do that when I was at varsity while being part of a tutoring club. I can do that in the workplace. So it is really important as a young person to note down the skills that you have. It's, oftentimes when people take for granted the skills that they gain along both their soft skills and their hard skills. And so my charge to you, Keith, would be first note those skills down for yourself and then align them with what's required in the workplace. And then you'll be able to exercise those skills in the workplace because you've taken the time to note them down and match them to what is required.
Keith, I hope that answers your question. Moving on to the next one from Anonymous, who wants to know, what are people's misconceptions and how can we combat them around young people in the workplace? Danai?
Yes, I think this is often a question that is had by a lot of young people, right? So I think typically, young people are often portrayed as being either lazy, they're unprofessional, they don't have sort of the ability to be able to do the job. I think a lot of people have the misconception that, you have to baby a young person when they enter into employment, right? And that's not true. It's definitely not true at all. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people have those misconceptions is that they don't take the time to actually know and get to know young people, right? And so if you don't know a young person, you don't really get the insights in terms of, what are the challenges that they face, what are the successes that they have, and what are the strengths that they have, right? And so I think one of the things that I'll always come back to is that it's really, really important that you are able to share your story, and to be able to share it in such a way where the person listening to it can see the value that you bring, right? So I know, for example, I'm not really good at report writing, and I think that's something that I've acknowledged. And I've been able to, I think, tell my teams that, look, this is something that I'm not really good at, but I am looking for opportunities to be able to improve that. And being able to, I think, know your strengths and weaknesses and to be able to articulate them, but also to be able to work towards strengthening those weaknesses is one of the ways that we could, I think, change the way in which young people are seen within the workplace. I think a second way that we can change some of the misconceptions around young people is to be able to, I think, go above and beyond what we're expected. So in the workplace, typically, your line manager your line manager may say, I need you to do to capture 10 pieces of information into the system. And I often think that, when young people start going above and beyond, the company really does see the value of having you in their company. And they actually realize that, what, if I don't have this young person in my operations, I will not be able to function effectively. And so I think it's really important for us as young people to, I think, always work towards, I think, showing sort of the strengths that we have, because we have a lot, and where there are weaknesses, to be able to actively work towards bridging them and ensuring that, we are taking the initiative to learn more and to better ourselves as a people as well.
Thanks, Danai. I think it is so important for someone to recognize their strengths and weaknesses. But one question that does come up related to this is something that Farai would be able to speak to. And it is, when exactly do you identify or admit to your strengths and weaknesses? So if we are talking about interview techniques, for example, and some of the typical questions that might come up in an interview, what is the best route for a young person to go when asked a question that often comes up relating to strengths and weaknesses?
Thanks, Mukebe, for the question. And I first want to start off in saying that I don't have weaknesses. I've got improvement areas. And I think if we can adapt how we phrase that, it also changes how we feel about ourselves and the value we bring. It's about having strengths and areas of improvement. In the interview prep, I think that we as individuals know ourselves. We also know what we are great at and perhaps what we have to improve at. I also think that our families know, and our friends and our partners and our colleagues know a lot about what we are great at and what we perhaps need to improve in. And so having that self-awareness is key for the interview, so that you do know what your strengths are and also what your areas of improvement are. When prepping for an interview, often my biggest advice to young people, to any friends or colleagues of mine who are preparing for interviews, is to say, practice them in real time. So there are so many resources out there which show you typical questions asked within an interview, and sit with a family member or friend and practice those questions so that you know how exactly you would answer them. And over and above that element of practicing for your interview, ensure that your personality comes out. Because like Danai had said, one can have a CV that is exceptional, but when they get into the interview room, They're just not showing that same person because of how nervous they are. But it's about allowing your personality to come out and knowing that you are the only one who knows your story. The people in the interview don't know your story. They don't know your hardships. They don't know what you've achieved. All they know is what you have shown them on the piece of paper. So add depth to your interview by highlighting not just what's on your CV, but what else you've achieved, what else you've conquered. Please, as young people, we often do not include our volunteering experience on our CV. And yet that's so critical because that is work experience. You could be volunteering, but you gain so many skills when you volunteer. You make so many networks when you volunteer. So be sure to also include that within your CV. Just to talk a bit more about CVs, Mogebe, and I hope it's fine. Ensure that you've got credible references on your CVs. A mistake we often make as young people is having, your mom on your CV, your partner. I know that you're excited that they are referencing you, but from an employer perspective, the mom will always speak well of you. Your partner will always speak well of you. Your church often will always speak well of you unless you are actively working there. So you have to ensure that you've got credible references that can speak about your capabilities, what you bring, and how you would be an asset for any organization that you find yourself in.
Being an asset, it's all about being an asset to any organization that you bring yourself to. I'd also just like to take this opportunity to let any youth attendees know that if they do have questions that are not related to a particular topic, they can email us at youth@4youth.co.za. And you can have some of those very individual questions answered there. Thank you for that. And Letiwe, I just want to know, how have you been able to use communications and networking and your facilitation skills, not only within your workplace as Letiwe herself, but to maybe grow and mentor young people within the spaces that you work in?
So yeah, I mean, through my networking, I've had the opportunity to have conversations that have led to young people realizing their strengths. And I think on that note, my encouragement to young people is to take advantage of the people they meet along the way, to build connections with people and have genuine conversations, because those conversations can lead to them realizing what interests they have, realizing what skills they need to acquire. So through my facilitation with young people, I've had those kind of conversations that have led to aha moments for those young people to say, oh, wow, I'm actually good at these things, or, oh, I didn't know that I could study coding, I just thought I'm just interested in computers, but there's actually a career path for me. So that's how I've used my networking, just having conversations, helping young people connect the dots, between what they are good at and what the labor market is requesting. But I think also added to that, through my facilitation, I've encouraged young people to look outside of their immediate circles, because oftentimes as young people, you can be very much kind of narrow in your thinking and not think to quote unquote cross the line and speak to someone from a different background, from a different area, and so through my facilitation work and networking, I've encouraged young people to speak to people that are not part of the immediate circle. And I think on that note, to a young person who's joined us and is an employed youth and is thinking of ways to progress in their career, I would encourage you to speak to people from other departments. Don't only speak to your colleagues within your team, speak to other young people and connect. And in doing so, you'll realize, one, more about yourself and your interests, but also two, you will realize what opportunities exist outside of your current opportunity.
Fantastic. And Danai, I know that you feel very strongly about volunteering, and a lot of times young people hear the word volunteering, and it sounds like some sort of distant thing and people don't know where to start. Could you potentially give us some examples of how young people can get involved within their communities to uplift not only their communities, but themselves?
Absolutely. I think in terms of volunteering, yeah, there are many opportunities, I think, that are around us within our communities. I think we just don't necessarily see them as such, right? So for example, in the area that we work in within the healthcare system, we find that a lot of young people actually start working at local NGOs that are based in their communities. I think based on sort of the interactions that they get there, we actually get a lot of CVs to say, look, this young person has been volunteering for me. They're doing really, really well. Are you able to create an opportunity for them? And so I think it's really important, I think, as other speakers had mentioned earlier, that, you know, whilst you're still looking for employment, I think find an opportunity within your community. So be it your church, be it the local old age home that's in your community, be it a small organization that has been established there, and ask them, you know, how can I help you and your organization, I think, could continue to make the impact that they're making in their community. And you can assist with things like, you know, just ensuring that, you know, the place is neat and organized. You can assist with either facilitating some of the sessions that they have. I think the opportunities that are there are quite endless. And I think that the point of young people volunteering is not only for you to learn a bit about the working world, but to also give back to your community, right? I often find that in volunteering, you actually get to learn more about, I think, some of the successes and the challenges and the stories that people have. And often that serves as an inspiration for you, right? So maybe you may be a young person who's just finished matric and you don't really know what you want to do. And volunteering is often a really good place to start, because you get to understand, okay, what am I passionate about? And from there, you're able to, I think, look for a network that is able to support you in terms of that. So I definitely advise all the young people to, I think, talk to people within your community and ask them, you know, are there any organizations that you have a particular interest in that are looking for people to assist? And often at times people will say yes, because I think it's always important to have many hands to, you know, in order for us to make an impactful change in our communities as well.
Thank you for that. I think a lot of people will gain a lot of wisdom from that answer, but we do want to welcome somebody that is from the Youth Employment Service, and she is one of our young people working within the organization, doing her quality work experience at the head office, Lebogang. Welcome, Lebo.
Hi, everyone.
Lebo, what we'd like to do is spend a moment to pick your brain a little bit around how you think that you were able to stand out enough to get yourself employed in this position, and what some of the things that you are learning are within your journey. And Lebo, one of the things that a couple of people have spoken to on the chat or the Q&A is about mental health issues. I see a young lady here who's speaking about overcoming working in, for example, a toxic organizational environment, and maybe you can give advice from the horse's mouth and how to navigate that type of thing. So just to be clear, we're asking you for just a brief background around how you got yourself in and what your experience has been, and what you might advise a young person in this particular position to do. And maybe Farah, you can also add on to that.
Thank you, Makeba, for the question. So background, I've got a BA and honors degree in psychology from the University of Johannesburg and my honors from UNISA. How I got the opportunity, funny enough, is that I literally went on Farah's Instagram page and she advertised the post. Number one, fear of the unknown. and I had to ask her, hi, my name is Lebu, I'm a young lady. Can you please hook me up with your email address, if I remember correctly? And Farah was kind enough to say, okay, I don't know you, but I'll give you my email address because you are a young person that is looking to seek employment. And that is exactly what I did, came for the interview. And what I would say stood out for me and benefited me in getting the opportunity is learning about the company. It's so important, and I know it's cliche for a lot of us, but learn about the company. The minute I saw who was interviewing me as well was, okay, it's Farai. What does Farai do? How can I pick her brain a little? And those are the little tricks that we can use as young people that are trying to seek employment. And I know one thing that made Farai very happy and proud was the fact that I had read her her interview with the Maverick, and that is something that I quoted during the interview to say, oh, I saw you said A, B, C, D. How is YES going to impact the youth? And showing that interest, showing understanding, and showing that you want to learn and you are in a space that you feel that you have a position and you're going to grow. That for me, I think stood out the most. And then with the last question with regards to the young lady that's suffering from mental health, unfortunately, I've also been there during my unemployment stages where I've went through the different stages of unemployment, such as saying, okay, today I'm optimistic and this week I'm going to apply for 5 jobs a day. And I do that, whether it's an admin job, a receptionist job, I apply. And unfortunately, that one rejection might dampen your mood and you feel depressed again, and it's back to stage 1. And it's all about being consistent, doing your research. LinkedIn, unfortunately enough for me, I've learned a lot from LinkedIn. Understanding the industry I wanted to go in, doing a lot of research. I kid you not, I've literally looked up on everyone's profile picture when I was still unemployed to say, oh, Farai has this. How did she get into that industry? Oh, Danai has that. How did she get into that industry? Doing research on those companies, it's really, really all about being inquisitive, all about being spontaneous and really, really wanting to grow within the stream that you've studied, or if you're in matric, understanding your why and understanding where you want to pursue your career aspects. Yeah.
We love it. Thank you so much, Lebogang. I think that
you.
would be an inspiration to everyone. There's another person who has a very valid question that says that they have tried and done the volunteering thing. They're between 31 and 34 years old. What is it that as a next step they can take? And I think, Lebo, some of what you were saying around platforms such as LinkedIn are ways to go. But Farai, I'd like you to take this on, looking into the pathways available to young people as a whole.
Sure thing. And I think that, when Levo shared her story, it just reminded me of her interview. She took all the steps that we have spoken about in this webinar, and she was so impressive that right after that interview, myself and the lady from HRDS knew that, okay, we have to hire her and she has to start tomorrow. And it's because, Levo, of how impressive you were, how you let your personality shine, how you weren't limited in terms of your CV, and also in how you had done your research. And so I think we're able to answer that question. There's 2 ways, right? One is that the youth unemployment crisis in South Africa it's a crisis. And unfortunately, there are less jobs than there are people who are looking for those jobs. And that means that as young people, we have to choose between one of 2 pathways. Either we still stick to wanting to find employment or we then decide to be bold and turn our side hustle into a sustainable business. If we pick option one, which is that we still want to find employment, we have to be deliberate and intentional with how we put ourselves out there. I agree with the level that LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. I actually have a rule for any of my mentees, and that is that one LinkedIn post a week, minimum. And that should be a post about what you do, or it should be a post where you share what someone else does. But you'd be surprised that the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more visible you are for opportunities. Because LinkedIn's algorithm is so exciting that if myself and Letty are not connected on LinkedIn, if she likes something that they all posted, I will see that as well. And that then means that I'm exposed to opportunities beyond my immediate work on LinkedIn. So the same way as young people, we can be on TikTok, go Instagram, Facebook posting, we also have to be very active on professional platforms like LinkedIn, which enhance our presence and also our employability. And there have been a number of young people who I saw first on LinkedIn and then said, you know what, actually, you'd be great at YES. And it was not about the qualification, but it was about how they are showcasing their capabilities. And as a result, that part of the interview was done. The actual interview in the office was now just a formality. So how are you using LinkedIn to go beyond your network and to showcase your work and impact? The second thing is that if we then say, okay, as a young person, I want to go on the entrepreneurial route, we have to do research. I don't think we as young people research enough. And the reason I can say that so confidently is that I remember a few years ago, I was in Ethiopia on a Saturday and the library was full, completely full. If you go to a library in our country on a Saturday, it is near empty. And what does that tell you about how we are accessing information, how we are accessing research, how we are doing that work? And there's a lot of research out there in terms of not just employability, but turning your side hustle into a sustainable business. You can check on platforms like the NYDA, there's funding from CEDA, the IDC as well. There are a lot of funding bodies out there. We also are blessed to live in a country that has got a lot of incubators. There are so many incubators that just want to help you better your business and will help you do research in terms of who your target market is, what is your product or service. And in most cases, these incubators are free. So how many of us are looking at these incubators and are going through these journeys? There's also a lot of free online sources. One of the ones which I can reference now is the SAYouth.mobi platform. That platform has got learning and earning opportunities for unemployed youth, zero rated across all mobile networks. And on there are entire modules about the hustle economy, free modules about looking at your side hustle and making it sustainable. So young people, there are opportunities there, and it may not always look like formal employment, but there is definitely something that is there. And it's about how do you leverage what works for you? And also how do you research the numerous partners? On this call alone, you've got 3 different partners, all who are doing good and incredible work looking at creating and massifying opportunities for young people. And I think Youth Capital definitely takes it a step further in terms of looking at what are the barriers young people face and how do we remove those barriers from a policy perspective. So there's a lot of work being done, but it's about researching, putting yourself out there and continuing to grow.
And Letty, I've been dying, thank you Farai, to ask you this question all afternoon. So if you were to be asked how to use your position and generally your knowledge around business development to see African youth reach their potential, if you were put on the spot and you were to be asked to give an answer around what it would take to help young South African youth prosper on the continent and particularly in this country, what would that be?
I think, I'd say it's really a matter of linking your strengths as a young person with the need in your immediate community. So if your strength as a young person is to sell goods, right? You're really good at sales. How do you connect that to the needs in your community? If you see that in your community, there are young people with a matric but don't have work opportunities. Maybe if you're good at sales, how about you take 3 of those young people and you teach them about just the natural knowledge that you have around sales, impart that knowledge to them and enable them to also become really good salespeople. And therefore you are using your strength to really meet a need in your community, but also in doing that, you're also, if you decide to be an entrepreneur, you're also building your business through that. But it's not just about you, but it's about others as well, which actually links to the point that Danae was making earlier, that as young people, when we serve, we don't only serve to grow ourselves and grow our skills, but we also serve to better our communities and make a difference. So yeah, I think that's what's needed in our continent and in all the countries across the continent, where young people connect their strengths to the need in their communities.
Thank you so much, Letiwe. Fantastic. Danai, I just wanted to pick your brain. What do you think the golden nugget would be if a young person such as Andiswa, who is looking to grow and get promoted within her job space, what would you advise her to do?
Sure. To be bold. I think that's the one thing that I've learned. I think especially as a young person who has, I think, gone through sort of the different forms of promotion. I think to be bold. I think often at times, when you feel like, it's time for me to actually get promoted, right? It's often a very difficult conversation to have, because you're essentially telling the company, look, this is the value that I have, this is sort of what I've done, and this is how much I am worth, essentially, right? And I think that sometimes us as young people, we often want someone else to do that, to have that conversation, right? We often want someone else to sort of push that for us. And I think that, the one thing that I would definitely say to any young person who knows that, I am deserving of a promotion, is to actually be bold and say, hey, look, this is the value that I've brought to the company. These are sort of the plans that I have in my new role, and this is why I deserve to be promoted. And I think 9 out of 10 times, what we ask for is actually what we get. But I think it's just the fear of, of not necessarily getting the answer that we have, or the fear of being rejected. I think that often stops us in our way. But I definitely would advise that young lady to just be bold and to say it outright, and nothing bad will happen from you asking. So that's definitely the golden nugget that I'll give that young lady.
And Letiwe, I think you want to add to that.
Absolutely. I think what I'd say, in addition to what Danae said, is to perceive yourself as the leader. You're not just an employee, but I think you are a stakeholder, or rather see yourself in the company as an investor, so to speak. So know that the success of the company or the organization also relies on you. And so see opportunities for the organization to grow. So as you make a case for why you need to be promoted, make that case from a position of saying, this is how I see the company will grow, because I too am responsible for the success of this organization, of this company.
So it's all about taking ownership at the end of the day, not only for yourself, but understanding what value you are providing to the company that you are employed by. So ladies, thank you so much for your time. Just in wrapping up, I would like to have perhaps one last piece of advice from each of you. And we are going to start with our very own Lebogang. Please do us the honors, Lebogang.
All right, and thank you so much for inviting me. So to the unemployed youth at home, I think the one thing I would recommend or suggest that you guys do is definitely getting intelligent CV. It has worked for me. It is absolutely free. You don't have to spend money that you don't have for CV revamping. So rather get that. It also has proven that it beats ATS robots, which are CVs that can automatically get you into the interview stage if it is presented well. So make sure that you do that and persevere, research, know a lot about your company and your future employers, as well as colleagues. And yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Lebo. Deny your parting shot.
Yes, I think if for all the young people that are listening in today, I think if you don't remember anything, I think one thing that I would definitely stress is use LinkedIn to your advantage. I think that's one platform where I've been able to network with people who are subject matter experts in things I'm interested in. I've been able to link up with people that are looking for job opportunities, for opportunities to partner as a small business. So I would definitely encourage all the young people listening to invest, I think, and participate actively in LinkedIn.
A fantastic LinkedIn for the win. Letiwe and then Farai, please.
Thank you. I think my charge or my appeal goes to young people who've joined us that are employed. So whether you've just received employment or you've been working for some time, my appeal or my charge to you is find an unemployed young person in your network and share the know-how, share what you know, because one of the barriers young people face is around information. So if you are in a position of being employed as a young person, find a young person in your network who you can impart the knowledge with and really be that access to that young person. Share interviewing tips, share how a young person can better their skill levels, but just really be a portal for young people in your network.
Wonderful. Farai, we will end with you.
Thank you, Mokebe. First of all, my colleagues have said everything so well. So I think that we are so captured there. I would just add one more thing, especially in light of Women's Month. There is a study from the Harvard Business Review and from Forbes as well that says that men apply for employment opportunities if they meet just 60% of the criteria. Women only apply if we meet 100% of the criteria. But when we do that as women, we are selling ourselves short. We are being too harsh on ourselves, and we are actually not allowing the opportunity to even reach us. So as women, apply and be bold and believe in yourself. You don't have to meet 100% of the criteria to actually get the job. It's about applying and seeing what skills you have that match that job. And even if it's only a 60% match, still do apply and try.
Power to women. I'd just like to say thank you very much to our panelists for making the time to come out here and impart us with their knowledge. Thank you very much to Denai, to Lebo, to Farai, as well as to Letiwe. Thank you very much to Youth Health Africa, to Youth Capital, and of course to YES for allowing this session to take place. And most importantly, thank you to all of you that signed up, and you did it. You followed through just by coming and staying here for the hour. I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Again, if you do have any questions, you're welcome to send them through to youth@yesforyouth.co.za, and we will endeavor to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you and good afternoon.